You guys may be wondering, how the actual donkey balls is he filming this? Well, you're about to find out. First, a quick word from our sponsor. This video was sponsored by my butt. My butt would like to say, visit my butt's website for more info. Okay, no, seriously, I never accept money from manufacturers, so if you guys find this useful, you can support this channel by getting your camera, if you choose to buy one, from Amazon, eBay, or B&H from the links below. So this is the Gopro Fusion. It's not the solution to our energy crisis, as the name might suggest. It is a 360-degree camera. For me, 360 filming is not about making 360 videos. Personally, I really dislike having to drag on the screen to look around a video or photo, and I'm not really into virtual reality headsets, so for me, filming in 360 is about the awesome effects that it can create for normal videos, like the one you're watching right now. The Fusion is more expensive than most action cameras or other 360 cameras, so I will also link to some cheaper options below, and we'll take a look at those at the end of the video very quickly. All daytime shots in this review were done on the original GoPro stick, and I used a Lollipod for almost all nighttime shots. Now, I'm not fully sure if I'll keep this camera. I love some things about it and don't like some things about it. The thing I love most about 360 cameras is having it look like a drone is following me around as I walk or skate. You can also do this with other 360 cameras, although not all of them get the stitching great around the hand, but most of the time it can look pretty good and it doesn't look that noticeable. The Fusion software does do a pretty damn good job with this though. The stitching around the image overall is very good, but a few times I had some small glitches or color changes across the sky, like it looks like there are two different exposures. And GoPro do say on their website that you'll see stitch lines underwater as well, which I haven't tried yet. As far as I know, the Fusion has the sharpest 360 video for this size of camera right now, which is really nice, but personally, I could also get away with most other 360 cameras out on the market right now, and for my uses, it would still be fine. I don't need the sharpest. And that's because I don't shoot professional 360 videos, although it might definitely come in handy for professional jobs, but for me, this would mostly be a camera for YouTube. For a lot of this video, I was filming in 3K at 60 frames per second because I thought slow motion would be really useful for this camera like it is for many other cameras. But what I found is that, for me at least, it really isn't. I almost never liked the slow motion, not because there was a quality issue, but because this camera looks so amazing when there's so much fast movement happening in the image. Absolutely do use it if you need slow motion, but I don't like it for this kind of camera for my uses. The GoPro Fusion has 6-axis stabilization. This is automatically recorded by the camera as gyroscope sensor data, which means you can instantly turn it on or off in post, although it's not the best on the market right now, but it is super helpful. And actually, I wouldn't use this camera if it didn't have stabilization. For me, it would lose all uses because my only use for this is walking around with it and running around with it, which is great. It means you don't need to change settings in the camera for stabilization. And unlike regular action cameras, stabilized footage does not mean any added crop, which is something that always annoyed me a little. 360 video obviously allows you to capture all angles and then reframe later, which is freaking awesome for maybe vlogging, sports, and maybe other kind of videos. We also have the ability to create multiple angles from one camera, which is super useful. So here, for example, I shot both of these at the same time. And in my experience, this really means that you rarely have to focus on the camera and its angle, and you can really focus more on what you're doing instead, which I think is fantastic. The Fusion is waterproof down to 16 feet or 4.8 meters, which is excellent. No case needed. The Fusion comes included with a decent selfie stick, which is super important for this kind of camera. It's also a mini tripod, although I didn't find myself using the tripod feature that much, but it is super useful when you need it. The length is great for most uses, but would require a table or something for use as a head height tripod. And of course, you'll want to be careful if it's windy or if there's something around it that could knock it over. I personally would prefer something a little less bulky, and the feet feel a bit flimsy when they're opened. The normal length should satisfy most users' needs, but those who don't find it sufficient can go for something larger like this Lollipod, which has almost 3 times the reach around. It's not intended for use as a selfie stick, which means it's a little slippy, but does have little balls at the bottom, which should prevent it from sliding out of your hand. Duct tape or something on the shaft will give it a bit more grip, but don't get any on the head because that is the most sensitive area. I do always use protection, but be aware of the dangers of having things tethered to you. For example, when diving, etc. A rip-away cord is always safer for your hand, although slightly less safe for the thing that you're holding. And a neat little trick that works with a lot of different things is if you don't like the accessories, put them up on eBay and buy something that you prefer, but it sort of gives you a little bit of a, well, you can think of it like a bit of a discount on the item that you bought. And with the price of this camera, you kind of want it. The Fusion has a huge battery that takes up basically half of the camera, which is great, but it means that this camera isn't super pocketable, especially with the case. This larger size means that this camera simply isn't suitable for 360-degree colonoscopies. My doctor friends were truly disappointed. And then also keep in mind that when you're using this, you need somewhere to put the case, and there's also no loop or anything like that to connect a string or clip to this little case. It would be nice if it had a belt clip so that you could attach it, let's say, to your butt, and then it wouldn't be in the shot and wouldn't be in your pocket like looking like a huge bulge. I try and leave the huge bulges for those who have earned it genetically. Let me know if you guys have some ideas for this. And I was actually amazed at the prices that GoPro are trying to charge for these accessories when they're not coming together with a camera. I'd like to see some more fair pricing from GoPro. I'm not saying they don't deserve any money, but it's kind of excessive sometimes. It's also very bulky with the selfie stick attached. They do just about fit in my big jacket pocket or in my waistband, but then it is obvious that I have a BBC, a big black camera grip. The Fusion needs 2 fast memory cards, which is another expense. It allows the Fusion to capture great quality, but as I'll explain later, I personally don't need this much quality. Walking around with a selfie stick feels weird for a few minutes, and people do stare, although later on I noticed people staring less, maybe because I wasn't paying attention to the camera that much, but I also am beyond giving a donkey's balls what people think. It's just like, if they think I'm weird, that's fine, whatever. The screen is small and only shows your settings, not the image, but since there is no direction to this camera, then this isn't a problem. I think you can see the actual image as you're filming from the GoPro app on iOS, but the Android version isn't available yet, as far as I know. GoPro say it's on the way, but I don't know when. With exposed lenses like this, you need to always put the camera on something soft or stand it upright or put it in its case. This does also mean a higher risk of damaging the lenses if it hits the ground, so I'd recommend getting this camera insured. I think GoPro offers this when you purchase it, but it will probably be much cheaper to go with an actual insurance company, which would then also likely cover it for loss and theft, whereas with GoPro, I don't think it does, but obviously, check both for yourself. Shutter speed is automatic, but isn't immune to flicker. Low light is really decent considering the size of camera. In most situations, it looks decent. It's still usable in pretty dark streets, but of course, then it does look noisy, which I really don't mind for my uses. Filming indoors or in evening time was not a problem and mostly looks nice, so good enough for me. I think probably better than all the other action cameras I've used, so I like it. The Fusion has voice commands, which is a nice feature if you need it. I also like that the shot button while the camera is off will turn it on and start recording, and a longer press will start recording a time lapse. The Fusion can shoot raw still images, but as far as I know, there's no way to edit them currently. You can stitch them first, which means that you lose much of the raw data, or you can edit the raw data in Photoshop first, and then the Fusion Studio app won't stitch them. It takes several seconds between each photo, which is incredibly annoying. And there is no delay option, so your hand or finger will always be in the shot. Unless you use another device to trigger it, you can use time-lapse mode to get photos while your hands or body are far away, but there is no raw option when shooting time-lapse. Now, I'm on 2 Facebook groups for 360 cameras, and as far as I can tell, most people are having crazy issues trying to connect this camera to a computer via USB, and mostly not being able to do it. So this is a massive pain in the butt, and actually getting the correct adapters and then pulling out the memory cards from the camera and moving all the files across and then doing that in reverse to get the camera ready to shoot again is annoying. So hopefully that'll get fixed. And loads of people are having issues with the GoPro Fusion software, just like I am. So I don't think it's my computer. Some of the stuff there's really cool, but with massive issues, like there's no save option. When it crashes, you lose everything. Everything. You lose the computer, you lose the camera, no, but all your work for those few hours. So that sucks. That sucks massive donkey balls. It sucks more donkey balls than Donkey Kong's wife. And remember that the files from both cards have to be put into one folder for this to work. If you are also having this crashing issue, then take a screenshot after preparing each clip. So that screenshot will basically show you what settings you used, and then you can reapply those settings a little bit quicker, but it's still going to be way slower than having a save option. It is still really annoying. The battery life is very decent. I've still never run out during filming, and you can get extras from GoPro for about £30, which is not too bad. It's one of the cheaper accessories, or you could wait for affordable aftermarket ones. Another thing I love is the super wide view gives the illusion that you're going super fast, which is really cool. And when it works, the Fusion app allows you to push the image into some weird and wonderful shapes. So I like that. Now, if you're using the footage in something compatible, like YouTube should work, then you can have sort of directional sound, although it's not really like a shotgun microphone, it's just a little bit more directional. So for example, when a viewer is looking at the person speaking, that person is going to be a bit louder. Now, I thought swappable batteries would be a must for me, and I think they might be important sometimes, but so far I've been fine with just one battery. And because it takes so long to export footage, then I just don't use this camera very much. I only shoot a tiny bit with it because I know the footage is going to be crazy to export if I shoot too much. Now, the audio quality here is surprisingly good. Actually, I was really impressed that I could walk down the street with this thing at the top of the lollipod, and the entire conversation down the street was completely usable in a video. Maybe the best I've seen, although I haven't compared it side by side with other things. That was an amazing story, wasn't it?
Yeah, I was like, yeah. Wait.
Oh. Wait, is there a story?
So the punchline, the moral of the story is, yeah, that was cool. That's funny.
In that example, wind noise wasn't an issue. But when I'm going down the street on the skateboard, then the audio basically goes silent. The automatic volume inside the camera just brings the volume down to basically 0. I think this is a bug. And of course, if there's noise around you, then it's gonna pick up all that noise. So the closer you put it to your face hole, the better. And this is actually, once again, a very big advantage over most regular cameras and action cameras and whatever you're gonna use for vlogging, because this camera can go so insanely wide with the image, then you can have it like almost touching your nose and still basically see everything, see your feet and your head and everything. It's going to obviously look weird if you do that, but it's going to be doable in a noisy environment, and you're still going to be able to get a video and audio, and you're still going to be able to do your vlog. It's going to be a weird looking vlog, but it's going to work. So it's potentially a very, very nice option to be able to still get usable audio while in a noise environment. The Fusion has a fairly good dynamic range considering it's an action camera, and filming with the flat Pro Tune mode is really easy since GoPro's software can do an automatic color correction for you when you import, which is really, really nice. So this brings back saturation and a contrasty image, which looks very nice. And there is a slider for contrast, and as far as I can tell, this is adding mid-range contrast, or at least mostly mid-range contrast, which means that it's not affecting the blacks and the whites, or the very, very top of the highlights quite as much, which is fantastic. It's somewhat similar to what the clarity filter does in Photoshop, but not exactly. It's more harsh in Photoshop. But this is great. It makes the image a little bit more contrasty without ruining your highlights and shadows in the Fusion app. It's like editing on a phone, even though I have a whole computer in front of me. It would just make it so much easier if they just let you have it as a slightly bigger image on the screen. I don't know what they're thinking. If you choose editing as an option in the export menu, then it's going to create a massive file that also doesn't work at all in Final Cut or any other Mac apps. The only thing I got it to play in was VLC with an additional plugin. I'd just choose the YouTube setting. Now, something that annoys me to no end is that the Fusion Studio software is able to do a pretty freaking excellent job of stitching the two images from the two cameras in real time while editing the clips before export. So that's kind of showing me that it could be so fast, even if it's not perfect. But there is no option for a low or a medium quality export from the GoPro software. And I spent about a day trying to find other free software that will do it. So here's what annoys me. It feels to me like GoPro are trying to force their users to always use the best quality for stitching, even though it could be way faster. And it's kind of screwing the customer a little, because maybe the customer wants a quick export, maybe just to test that it looks good and just see if he likes it, or maybe for whatever reason, maybe it's just a vlog and the quality of the stitching isn't a big issue. And so I understand that GoPro want their camera to always produce the best looking stuff. If there was a quick export option, then I would actually keep this camera, but I can't use this camera. It takes so long to render, and I'm using it for YouTube, so it's too long. And I cannot render it overnight because the software is so bad that it keeps crashing. So this is fine if you always want the best quality stitching, but if, like me, you sometimes want to create quick YouTube videos where quality isn't a huge issue, then the lack of a fast render really applies negative pressure to spherical objects. Or in other words, it sucks balls. Seriously, GoPro, this must be fixed, because some people are just not going to buy the camera because of this super slow rendering time. This is the biggest flaw for this camera in my opinion. There is a free plugin that does instant stitching in Final Cut and Premiere, but it is fully manual, so it might work if someone makes a good preset for the Fusion, but currently I don't know how to make it even a tiny bit usable. And other comparable cameras are doing in-camera stitching, so for GoPro to not have this option is kind of stupid, I think. On my laptop, the Fusion app takes about an hour to export 1 minute 26 seconds of 2K 60p video. But since I can only prepare a few clips before it crashes, then I can't do any big overnight export. Another really weird issue is that even though I'm just editing the 2K files exported from the GoPro app, the playback dramatically slows down my computer when I'm trying to edit. And this happens even after creating proxy files for those clips. Don't ask me why, I have no clue. It's probably a problem with Final Cut, but I've not had it with anything else, and not even with 4K footage, so I don't know what's going on. And finally, the dumbest problem with this camera is that it will only record if you insert the cards back into the same slot. That is a pointless pain in the pee hole. So as a conclusion, I would say this isn't something I'm going to keep, but it is a pretty awesome camera and does some pretty cool things, although the software is just too buggy and too slow at the moment for making YouTube videos, in my opinion. And so I'll just be looking for something better and cheaper with in-camera stitching and stabilization, if such a thing exists. But maybe for those who want the sharpest image and best stitching, then this might be good. For a budget alternative, I'll link below to the Xiaomi 360 camera, which is almost as good, but less than half the price of the Fusion, looking at current Amazon Prime prices in the US and Europe. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope you found this useful. If you want to support this channel, then you can get yours from the links down below. And don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.